Live from New Delhi, you're watching DD India NewsHour, India's voice to the world. I'm Ramesh Ramachandran. Coming up in the next hour. US allies welcome Trump's changed tone on Ukraine-Russia conflict after the US president says Kyiv can win back land from Moscow. India slams Pakistan at the UN Human Rights Council, says Islamabad bombs its own people and abuses international forums by making provocative statements against New Delhi. Typhoon Ragasa makes landfall in China after killing 17 in Taiwan and causing damage in Hong Kong. 2 million evacuated from the Chinese province of Guangdong. And a road in Thailand's capital Bangkok caves in. The massive hole disrupts traffic, damages infrastructure and prompts evacuations. No casualties reported. First up, India slammed Pakistan at the United Nations Human Rights Council on Tuesday, accusing Islamabad of bombing its own people and misusing international forums to hurl baseless and provocative allegations against New Delhi. India told the 60th session of the UN Human Rights Council that Pakistan should instead focus on rescuing its own economy, which is on life support and a human rights record stained by persecution. DD India's Raghav Kumar Jha delves deep into the rampant violation of human rights in Pakistan to reveal the truth behind Pakistan's doublespeak.
India on Tuesday ripped apart Pakistan at the 60th session of the United Nations Human Rights Council. Lashing out at Islamabad, the Indian diplomat Kshitij Tyagi accused it of bombing their own people and abusing the forum with baseless and provocative statements against India.
A delegation that epitomizes the antithesis of this approach continues to abuse this forum with baseless and provocative statements against India. Instead of coveting our territory, they would do well to vacate the Indian territory under the illegal occupation and focus on rescuing an economy on life support, a polity muzzled by military dominance, and a human rights record stained by persecution. Perhaps once they find time away from exporting terrorism, harboring UN-proscribed terrorists, and bombing their own people.
The Indian diplomat's sharp rebuke came just a day after reports of a Pakistani Air Force strike in Pakistan's Khyber Pakhtunkhwa province that left at least 30 civilians dead, including women and children. International human rights organizations called for an investigation into these allegations, urging protection of civilians and accountability for any violations. Human rights violations are a significant and ongoing issue in Pakistan, which include the severe suppression of dissent, with authorities arresting critics and political opponents, and restrictions on freedom of assembly. Discrimination against religious and ethnic minorities such as Hazara and Ahmadi communities, and reports of extrajudicial killings and forced disappearances. Defense of Human Rights reported 2,332 cases of enforced disappearances throughout 2024-25, often targeting journalists, students, activists, and political opponents. In 2024-25, Pakistan deported about 315,100 Afghan refugees back to Afghanistan, often unlawfully, while at least 10,566 Afghan refugees were arrested and detained within Pakistan during this crackdown. Forced conversions, especially of Hindu women and girls, remain prevalent, with at least 136 cases reported in 2023, mostly in Sindh. In the first half of 2024, 862 cases of child sexual abuse, 668 abductions, and 82 attempted suicides involving children were reported. There was an uptick in violence against minorities, especially the Ahmadiyya community, which faced killings, mosque closures, declaration of graves, and mass arrests. At least 82 Ahmadi graves were desecrated in 2024. According to human rights organizations, security forces continued the policy of kill and dump in Balochistan, where dissidents were kidnapped, tortured and killed. India also reminded the Human Rights Council that its mandate must remain universal, objective and non-selective, cautioning against country-specific mandates that it said reinforced perceptions of bias and selectivity.
Our collective efforts should foster unity and constructive engagement, not division. We are concerned by the continued proliferation of country-specific mandates. Far from advancing the Council's core mandate, they reinforce perceptions of bias and selectivity. Focusing narrowly on the human rights situation in a few countries distracts us from the urgent and shared challenges the world faces.
In April this year, UN human rights experts expressed serious concern over the excessive and harmful impacts of Pakistan's counter-terrorism measures in Balochistan, calling for full respect of international law. The UN experts asked Pakistan to take stronger measures to prevent all rights violations, hold perpetrators accountable and provide remedies to victims. Raghav Kumar Jha's report for DD India.
In a major shift, US President Trump said that Ukraine can win back territory from Russia. The Kremlin dismissed his remarks, saying that it is wrong to think that Ukraine could recapture land taken by Moscow's army. DD India's Tripti Tripathi has more.
Kremlin on Wednesday asserted that it has no option but to continue its ongoing military campaign against Kyiv. The announcement comes following Washington's surprise shift of changing its stance on Russia to back Ukraine and urging NATO nations to shoot down Russian jets violating their airspace. After meeting Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky a day earlier, the US President Donald Trump said that Ukraine could win back every inch of its territory from Russia, which he labeled as a paper tiger with a failing economy.
The biggest progress is that the Russian economy is terrible right now. It's, as you know, it's crashing. And that, frankly, Ukraine is doing a very good job of stopping this very large army. It's pretty amazing. You know, this is a war that should have ended in 3 days, 4 days. People said it was going to be very quick, and you got to hand it to the Ukrainian soldiers.
Trump dismissed Russia's military prowess and mocked its inability to beat Ukraine in a matter of days. Zelensky hailed Trump's apparent change of position as a big shift.
Trump is a game changer by himself if he will be sure in Ukraine. And I think that he is more close now to this situation, and that's why, and between us, only Trump can. For today, we know some not too much players in the world who can be game changers, but he's the most closer to this.
Also on Tuesday, U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio warned that Trump's patience on ending the conflict in Ukraine was not infinite.
The president is a very patient man. He's very committed to peace, but his patience is not infinite. And as he has said repeatedly, he has before him the opportunity and the options of imposing additional economic costs on the Russian Federation if necessary in order to bring this to an end.
Reacting to Trump's remark, the Kremlin said it had no options but to continue its military campaign. Spokesperson Dmitry Peskov even clarified that Trump's paper tiger comment was aimed at Russia's economy. He added that Russia is symbolized by a bear and remains, in his words, a real bear. Trump's comment has garnered EU's attention too. Brussels has urged member states to increase their support for Ukraine. Meanwhile, NATO issued a warning to Russia after a series of airspace violations. However, Moscow dismissed these claims, citing that the Russian military aviation complies with all flight rules and regulations. US leaders' comments mark the latest in a series of reversals on Ukraine, including a sudden talks. Tripti Tripathi report for DD India.
Now, global challenges such as institutional reforms and geopolitical conflicts took center stage as world leaders convened at the United Nations headquarters in New York City for the 80th UN General Assembly high-level debate. Prominent voices called for a more inclusive and representative multilateral system as the world grapples with mounting crises and power shifts. From calls to reform the UN Security Council to key leadership announcements, the next report examines the general debate in detail.
calls for reform, including the United Nations Security Council and heightened emphasis on multilateralism, were the highlights of the second day at the 80th UN General Assembly in New York, being attended by leaders from across the world. In his address to the UNGA General Debate, Spain's King Don Felipe II talked about the need to advance reform initiatives through dialogue and consensus building.
We continue to believe in the need to advance reform initiatives, and we offer our capacity for dialogue and consensus building, as well as our firm multilateral conviction in this endeavor.
Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, in his address to the UN General Assembly, said that the world was living through the most destructive arms race in human history. He also accused Russian President Vladimir Putin of seeking to continue his war by expanding it beyond Ukraine.
None of this would have happened if Putin had not started this full-scale aggression, full-scale war. And we told you before, Ukraine is only the first, and now Russian drones are already flying across Europe, and Russian operations are already spreading across countries, and Putin wants to continue this war by expanding it.
Earlier, Chile on Tuesday put forth its former president Michelle Bachelet as a candidate to replace UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres, whose term ends next year. Addressing the UN General Assembly, Chilean President Gabriel Boric said 73-year-old Bachelet was the perfect choice.
Un tremendo honor.
To me, it's a tremendous honor to announce from here that Chile will nominate our former President Michelle Bachelet Jeria as candidate for the Secretary General of the United Nations.
With urgent discussions on global conflicts and new leadership nominations like Chile's Michelle Bachelet for UN Secretary General, the Assembly underscored the need for collective action to address pressing global challenges. Bureau Report, DD India.
Still to come on DD India NewsHour. South Korea's former First Lady Kim Kyon-hee goes on trial in a corruption case. Iran says it will continue selling oil to China even if UN sanctions are activated. And voters in Guinea choose to implement a new constitution.
Geopolitics and trade deals. Economic challenges amid development. Hard work and the path to prosperity. It's the economy, always. Between walkers, money is what money does and says. Supply creates its own demand. Between the bulls pulls and bears tears. When supply chains globalization and India rises to the podium. We'll get you centered with the economic brief at 8 p.m. every Thursday on DD India.
Welcome back. You're watching DD India NewsHour. I'm Ramesh Ramachandran. The world is witnessing unprecedented force of nature as Super Typhoon Ragasa makes landfall in China. Roaring through the Indo-Pacific, it's the strongest tropical cyclone of the year. DD India's Adamya Mishra has more.
Super Typhoon Ragasa made a landfall in Hong Kong on Wednesday with heavy torrential rain flooding the streets. Huge waves crashed against the coastline of Stanley Beach with overflowing waters turning roads into rivers alongside residential properties. Tourists and local residents of Hong Kong also witnessed uprooted trees and leftover debris on the streets as the typhoon moved away from Asia's financial hub.
What I heard was the piercing sound of the wind in the early morning, a mix of wind and rain. I usually sleep deeply, but it woke me up many times throughout the night. These trees were also uprooted. The power of nature is indeed very huge.
As Ragasa charged towards Guangdong province in China, the Marine Authority issued its highest red wave warning for the first time this year, forecasting waves of up to 2.8 meters in parts of the province. The typhoon also lashed mainland China and Taiwan, damaging infrastructure and causing destruction. Heavy rains flooded the town of Guangfu after Ragasa caused a barrier lake to overflow. With global warming increasing the frequency of typhoons in Asia, weather experts are saying to expect more super typhoons, not only to hit the South China coast, but also other parts of Asia. Adam Mishra's report for DD India.
Thai authorities rushed to contain a massive sinkhole near a hospital in central Bangkok that disrupted utilities and traffic on Wednesday. The 50-meter deep sinkhole extended about 900 square meters in front of the Vajira hospital, halting traffic. The hospital announced that it would not take on patients during the incident. Prime Minister Anutin Charnavirakul told reporters that dirt from an underground train construction was sliding in, which caused the sinkhole. Meanwhile, authorities said they had halted further ground movement and were monitoring the site very closely. A shooting incident was reported at an Immigration Customs Enforcement office at Dallas in the U.S. state of Texas on Wednesday. Officials confirmed that the shooter was killed after a self-inflicted gunshot. An official said that those shot at the facility could be employees, civilian visitors, or detainees. Meanwhile, U.S. Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem said on X that the motive behind the shooting is not yet known. Kim Kyon-hee, the wife of South Korea's ousted President Yoon Suk-yeol, appeared in court on Wednesday for the start of a corruption trial. Kim, who faces charges including bribery and stock manipulation, arrived at the Seoul Central District Court, making her first appearance since her arrest in the month of August. In brief remarks to the court, she confirmed her personal information and asked for a trial by judge rather than a jury, but did not address any of the charges. If convicted on any of the charges, Kim faces penalties ranging from fines to up to 5 years in prison. Iran's oil minister Mohsen Paknejad said on Wednesday that Iran's oil sales to China will continue even if UN sanctions are reimposed under a so-called snapback mechanism.
A snapback or trigger mechanism will, in fact, not create any new burdensome restriction on oil sales. Over the past years, we have faced the severe restriction of the unjust and unilateral US sanctions. So the current situation may not add much more to them. Naturally, if we encounter circumstances that require the adoption of measures, the necessary planning will be carried out.
To Africa now, where voters in a Guinea referendum have overwhelmingly approved a new constitution with 89% supporting the charter. Nearly 6.7 million voters were registered for the country's constitutional referendum on Sunday. The constitution paves the way for elections in the West African country and also permits interim President General Mamadi Doumbouya to run for president. Venezuela's President Nicolas Maduro says the U.S. military presence in the Caribbean threatens to escalate into a catastrophic war in all of the continent. Take a listen.
This false narrative seeks to impose a state of violence in the Caribbean and South America and threatens to escalate into a catastrophic war in all of our continent. An attack on Venezuela would be the beginning of a catastrophic war in the Caribbean and South America.
Hundreds of farmers and other civil groups held a protest demanding agricultural reform outside Indonesia's national monument in Jakarta. According to the independent organization Consortium for Agrarian Reform, the archipelago faces hundreds of land conflicts, with data showing a 21% increase in conflicts between 2023 and now. Farmers' welfare is also among the issues raised during the demonstration, which coincided with Indonesia's National Farmers' Day. Germany's ambassador to India has invited skilled Indian workers to work in his country. The envoy says that Germany's migration policies are stable and they do not change fundamentally overnight.
This is a good moment to talk about Indians working in Germany. Indians are amongst the top earners in Germany. The average Indian working in Germany earns more than the average German working in Germany. And that's pretty good news. Because a high salary means that Indians are contributing big time to our society and our welfare. We believe in hard work and we believe in giving the best jobs to the best people. Our migration policy works a bit like a German car. It's reliable, it is modern, it is predictable. It will go in a straight line with no zigzags. And you don't have to fear a full brake at a top speed. We do not change our rules fundamentally overnight. Highly skilled Indians are welcome in Germany. If you want to find out what Germany has to offer,
once again, India's voice resonated at the UN. On the margins of the 80th UN General Assembly, External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar hosted a high-level meeting of Global South countries where he projected India as a bridge builder for the world's emerging economies. He underlined India's role as a trusted partner and problem solver in global governance. DD India's Nishchoy Roy has more.
At a time when the world seeks voices of balance and bridges of trust, India is steadily emerging as the conscience of the Global South. In New York, on the sidelines of the 80th UN General Assembly session, India's Minister for External Affairs, Dr. S. Jaishankar, convened a high-level meeting of developing nations, underscoring India's enduring commitment to dialogue, solidarity and reform in global governance.
India would propose the following points for your collective consideration. 1. We utilize existing forums to strengthen consultations among Global South with a view to enhance solidarity and encourage collaboration. 2. Bring to the table specific strengths, experiences, and achievements that we may have individually developed, but which can actually benefit fellow Global South members.
Presenting India's position, Dr. Jaishankar underlined that in today's world of mounting risks and uncertainties, it is natural for the Global South to turn to multilateralism for collective solutions.
As like-minded Global South countries, we today approach world affairs united and through a broad set of principles and concepts, and these include 1. Fair and transparent economic practices that democratize production and enhance economic security. A stable 1. Fair and transparent economic practices that democratize production and enhance economic security. A stable environment for balanced and sustainable economic interactions, including more South-South trade, investment, and technology collaborations.
External Affairs Minister also held a series of important bilateral meetings. He had a warm exchange with St. Lucia's Foreign Minister, Alva Baptiste, and engaged in fruitful talks with Somalia's Minister of Foreign Affairs, Abdisalam Ali. With Mauritius Foreign Minister Dhananjay Ritesh Rampul, Dr. Jaishankar discussed follow-up to Prime Minister Naveen Ramgoolam's recent successful visit to India. He also acknowledged Suriname's Foreign Minister, Melvin Buva, for his strong support of India-Suriname ties. The External Affairs Minister further met Lesotho's Foreign Minister, Lejone Ampochana, and Denmark's Foreign Minister, Lars Løkke Rasmussen. With Denmark, discussions included bilateral relations, India-EU cooperation, and the latest developments in Europe and the Ukraine conflict. At a time when international order faces turbulence, New Delhi continues to emerge not just as a participant, but as a shaper of solutions for a shared future. Nishchoy Roy's report for DD India.
The Cabinet Committee on Economic Affairs, chaired by Prime Minister Narendra Modi, has approved a number of decisions. The Cabinet approved a comprehensive package of nearly 70,000 crore rupees to revitalize India's shipbuilding and maritime ecosystem. The Cabinet also approved 75,000 additional postgraduate medical seats for students worth an outlay of 15,000 crore rupees.
प्रधानमंत्री जी ने एक संकल्प जो लिया था कि 75,000 एडिशनल मेडिकल सीट्स 5 साल में क्रिएट करेंगे भारत में, तो आज 5,000 नए पोस्ट ग्रेजुएट सीट्स का अप्रूवल कैबिनेट में मिला है और इसके लिए आउटले होगा 15,035 करोड़ रुपीस। 15,035 करोड़ रुपीस का इसके लिए आउटले होगा। ओवरऑल बेटर हॉस्पिटल्स, अपग्रेडेशन ऑफ मेडिकल कॉलेजेस, उनमें नए डिपार्टमेंट्स खुलना, नए डिसिप्लिन्स लाना, बेटर इक्विपमेंट लाना, बेटर मेडिकल टेक्नोलॉजीज लाना और एआई का भी बहुत उपयोग किया जाएगा in improving the medical education.
The Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, or the OECD, has raised India's GDP growth forecast by 40 basis points to 6.7% in 2025 from its earlier projection of 6.3% in June. The OECD's latest World Economic Outlook said that overall activity is anticipated to be supported by monetary and fiscal policy easing and robust GST reforms. However, it also said that higher tariff rates will weigh in on the country's export sector. According to the report, the food price inflation has declined sharply in India, helped by strong domestic supply and export restrictions. The OECD has sharply cut its financial year 2026 consumer price index inflation projection by 120 BPS to 2.9%. The report also noted that global growth proved more resilient than expected in the first half of 2025, especially in many emerging markets. Right now, take a look at what else is making news around the world. A self-styled African tribe camping in woodland near the Scottish border has refused to leave despite receiving a second eviction notice. The so-called Kingdom of Kubala was ordered by the Scottish Borders Council to vacate the land by Monday. The group had previously been evicted from a nearby private site last week, but set up a new camp on the other side of a small fence. Brazil's police is working to expand its gold tracing program to other countries in the Amazon rainforest as criminals increasingly smuggle gold across borders to escape Brazil's tightening enforcement. Ouro Alvo, or clean gold, was launched in 2019 when Brazil's current illegal mining boom was gathering pace. The U.S. is in talks with Argentina to set up a $20 billion swap line that would give the South American country access to dollars as it battles high inflation ahead of the 26th October midterm election. U.S. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent said the U.S. is also ready to buy Argentina's dollar bonds if needed. President Javier Milei thanked the U.S. for its support. And still to come on DD India NewsHour. An expert take on habitual offender Pakistan abusing global forums to peddle lies about India. Prime Minister Modi to inaugurate the Uttar Pradesh International Trade Show on Thursday. And Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman launches a GST appellate tribunal.
Jharkhand will mesmerize you with majestic nature, rich heritage and colorful culture.
Hello. Johar. It fits perfectly.
Thank you.
Full workout ho gaya.
Ready?
Postcards from Jharkhand on National Geographic.
Can the US launch a bombing campaign against Iran? The Philippines vessel suffered structural damage. The saga of child sexual abuse is the United States China's debt trap strategy. Truth is stranger than fiction. But sometimes hard to uncover. Trust us to tell the truth, unadulterated and pure, of every story that matters to you. You read between the lines, cut the clutter, and connect the dots to get you the full picture. Watch Connecting the Dots at these times with me, only on DD India.
Welcome to DD India, where a billion voices unite, connecting viewers to the stories that matter.
Welcome back. You're watching DD India NewsHour. I'm Ramesh Ramachandran. Going back to the top story we are tracking here on DD India NewsHour, India slams Pakistan at the UN Human Rights Council, accusing Islamabad of bombing its own people and misusing international forums to level baseless allegations against New Delhi. Joining us is Dr. TCA Raghavan. Dr. Raghavan is a former Indian High Commissioner to Pakistan and Singapore. He's an accomplished author to boot. His second of 3 books is titled The People Next Door, The Curious History of India's Relations with Pakistan. High Commissioner, welcome to DD India News. Good to have you join this discussion. Now, first, an Indian diplomat blasts Pakistan's lies on Jammu and Kashmir, citing its persecution of minorities, bombing of civilians in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, and suppression of democracy. And then, an Indian representative of an NGO by the name of EcoFawn highlights the Pakistani plot behind the Pahalgam terror attack, urging nations to dismantle cross-border networks and financing channels. What did you make of India's double-barreled offensive on Pakistan at the UNHRC in Geneva?
Well, to some extent, this is a familiar pattern which repeats itself in different international fora. Pakistan levies various allegations. Usually they are entirely without foundation and are essentially plugging a propagandistic line. India responds. I don't know what value we should attach to these tactical skirmishing. Pakistan's adversarial mindset with regard to India is well known. I don't think we need to educate international opinion about it. I think most people are conscious about the reasons why it indulges in this kind of behavior. But as I said, this tactical skirmishing, whether in the UN Human Rights Council or in other international platform, this has a repetitive pattern to it, which frankly leaves most people exhausted and left wondering as to what should be the trajectory of events in South Asia.
Let me ask you a related question, Dr. Raghavan. Now, do you think the world in general and the UN in particular is simply paying lip service to the issue of terrorism? And doesn't that in a way expose the limits of multilateralism and bodies such as the UN? I mean, India proposed what is known as the Comprehensive Convention on International Terrorism way back in 1996, a full 5 years before the 2001 terror attacks in New York City. And yet, here we are.
You're quite right. But I think the larger point which we have to accept is that the global war on terror, something which began with the US as an alliance leader and the leading alliance partner, taking on terrorist groups and radical groups across the world, that phase of global history is now over. countries led by the US have become much more transactional in how they view incidents of terrorism or terrorist groups. I think while we may condemn this development, while we may not like it, but the fact remains that global history is now on a different trajectory. And the global war on terror as we knew it, that phase is now over. We have to come to terms with a new reality, even as we confront the challenges posed by terrorism in South Asia and in our own neighborhood.
All right, and talking about Pakistan, Dr. Raghavan, the Indian statement referred to Pakistan's economy being on life support. For the benefit of viewers joining us from around the world, just how bad is Pakistan's economy?
Well, the Pakistani economy underwent a very sharp dip between 2021 and 2023, when inflation was out of control. The Pakistani rupee depreciated very, very rapidly, and most of all, they faced a very, very severe balance of payments issue. This downturn in the economy had coincided with a larger crisis in Pakistan because of political uncertainty, a dramatic rise in national security incidents and acts of terrorism carried out by the TTP, by cataclysmic floods. But to some extent, since 2023, and especially in 2024 and 2025, the economic situation stabilized, which is not to say that the Pakistan economy is out of the woods. It faces major structural problems, and unless those structural problems are addressed, its basic fragility will remain. But certain stabilization is now evident in that inflation has come down, the depreciation of the rupee is no longer taking place at the same pace, and the balance of payment situation has stabilized. So there is a short-term stabilization, even amidst a longer-term structural crisis and major headwinds in a medium-term and long-term sense which the Pakistan economy faces.
But as you say, Pakistan is not out of the woods yet. Now, on another point, Dr. Raghavan, what can you tell us about the condition of minorities in Pakistan, the systematic persecution of Shias, Ahmadis, Hazaras, Hindus and Christians?
Well, that is not a new development. This has been part of Pakistan's contemporary history for a long period of time. The minorities you refer to, especially the Ahmadiyas and especially many Hindus and Sikhs in far-flung areas of Pakistan, face a very adverse environment. There's no doubt about that. But that in itself is not a new development. Many of this discrimination and antagonism and huge pressure which these minorities face is also related to the general erosion of governance standards in Pakistan, and this has been a consistent trend for the past 2 or 3 decades. It's also related to a general intolerance and the rise of extremist groups whose tolerance levels for minorities, of non-Muslim minorities, but also of sects within Islam, their tolerance level is very low. And as these radical groups have got empowered, the situation of these minorities has deteriorated further. But these are part of the longer-term trends which bedevil the entire governance structure in Pakistan.
Right. Now, international human rights organizations are calling for an investigation into these allegations, urging protection of civilians and accountability for any violations. Do you think such a probe is warranted? And which agency, body or organization would be best suited for this purpose?
You see, in my experience, issues such as protection of minorities or other human rights issues in any country should best be handled by national institutions. This has been a long-term and consistent position which India has taken with regard to many countries across the world. That external pressures in these kind of situations, while they may appear optically very attractive, in fact do not lead to any substantive improvement in the condition of minorities or in the overall human rights situation in any country. I think that would apply to Pakistan also. We have to try to see as to what kind of domestic changes in Pakistan will improve this environment and the situation for minorities, also with regard to overall governance standards, so that the human rights situation improves.
And finally, Dr. Raghavan, how do you see the role of the Pakistani army in all of this? Is it as culpable or perhaps more culpable than the political elites in Pakistan?
I think in Pakistan there is a particular structure in which both, to a very great extent, the Pakistan military, but also the political elite are both complicit in that structure. The fact is that the Pakistan military, after facing severe public criticism between 2021 and 2023, over the past few months, they have consolidated their domestic position considerably. And to a very great extent, they are now, their position is much stronger than perhaps it has ever been in the past decade. I think that is a new factor which has emerged in Pakistan, and the resilience which the military as an institution has demonstrated is something which we have to analyze and think about very carefully.
Dr. Raghavan, pleasure as always to talk to you. Thank you for your time. Much appreciated.
Thank you.
Right, the Eco-Fawn Society and Environmental Advocacy Group organized a photo exhibition at the Broken Chair during the 60th session of the Human Rights Council in Geneva. Titled Faces of Resilience Beyond Condemnation Towards Solidarity, the exhibition showcased photographs and stories of victims affected by Pakistan-backed terrorism in Jammu and Kashmir. The images depicted harrowing incidents such as the Pahalgam massacre and were accompanied by powerful messages including "Stop Terrorism," calling for global solidarity against extremist violence. In other news, the stage is set for Uttar Pradesh's biggest business event of its kind. Prime Minister Modi will inaugurate the third edition of the Uttar Pradesh International Trade Show at the Greater Noida Expo Mart on Thursday. The 5-day event promises to connect local artisans, entrepreneurs and industries with national and global markets. DD India Debyanda Mondal has more.
The Uttar Pradesh International Trade Show opens on 25th September at the sprawling Expo Mart in Greater Noida. Spread across 2,200 stalls, the event will bring together artisans, MSMEs, handloom and textile producers, and industrial houses from across the state. This edition is expected to be bigger than before, with over 2,200 exhibitors and participation from more than 80 countries. The last edition had generated business worth 2,000 crore rupees, and this year's trade show aims to surpass that benchmark. Russia is the partner country this year, with 30 companies showcasing their products and services. An India-Russia business dialogue is also scheduled, where energy, power and banking sectors are likely to dominate discussions. The Uttar Pradesh government is using this platform to highlight investment opportunities, technological advancements and research potential. Several departments have set up dedicated pavilions to attract investors and showcase growth prospects in the state.
पहला राज्य उत्तर प्रदेश है जो अपना ट्रेड शो का आयोजन करता है और उत्तर प्रदेश इसमें आगे आया है। तीसरा ट्रेड शो का ये सफल कार्यक्रम आयोजित हो रहा है। निश्चित तौर पर हम मानते हैं कि हमारे जितने भी उद्यमी हैं, हस्तशिल्पी हैं, कारीगर हैं, जिनके उत्पाद को एक बड़ा मार्केट देने का काम हमारी उत्तर प्रदेश की सरकार कर रही है और इस बार हमारे देश के यशस्वी प्रधानमंत्री जी इस कार्यक्रम की शुभारंभ करने आ रहे हैं। निश्चित तौर पर इस ट्रेड शो से पूरे देश प्रदेश के उद्यमियों को नई पहचान, नई उड़ान और नया व्यापार का एक प्लेटफॉर्म मिलेगा, जहां पर 80 से अधिक देशों के लोग भी आ रहे हैं। बड़ा ये 5 दिन लगातार चलेगा, बहुत सारी तैयारी के साथ ये कार्यक्रम किया जा रहा है।
To make the event more accessible, the government has launched a dedicated trade show app for better navigation, information and coordination. Organizers expect around 5 lakh visitors to walk through the expo during the 5 days. From handicrafted artistry to cutting-edge technology, the Uttar Pradesh International Trade Show is set to be a confluence of tradition and modern enterprise. With global participation and massive footfall expected, the event is poised to give Uttar Pradesh a bigger role in India's growth story. From Greater Noida, Dibyendu Mandal's report for DD India.
Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman launched a GST appellate tribunal on Wednesday, which is expected to speed up grievance redressal process, with hearings expected by December 2025. GST appellate tribunal is a natural extension of the reform arc, an important advance for ease of doing business and a vital forum for justice. The appellate tribunal aims to provide simplified formats and checklists, digital by default filings and virtual hearings, and time standards for listing, hearing and pronouncements. The focus remains on reducing legal frictions, greater simplicity for cash flows to move faster.
One principal bench in New Delhi and multiple state benches across the country with equal representation of technical members from the center and the states. It's absolutely unique, just as the GST is the one and only constitutional body since after independence of India. So I think this has the best of everything that Indian jurisprudence can offer, best of everything that the judicial administration can offer.
And still to come on DD India NewsHour. Jimmy Kimmel's late night talk show back on air in the US. The EU to propose higher import tariffs on Russian oil. And China's Alibaba and Nvidia of the US announced a collaboration in AI robot technology.
Complex issues, hidden agendas, twists and turns, strategic games. We think all dots are linked. We just need to connect them. Join me every week as I connect the dots to unravel hidden designs in statecraft, mysteries, and decode issues that matter to you. Watch Connecting the Dots with me at these times on DD India.
Welcome back. You're watching DD India NewsHour. I'm Ramesh Ramachandran. World Food India 2025, organized by the Ministry of Food Processing Industries, is being held from 25th to 28th September at Bharat Mandapam in New Delhi. Prime Minister Modi will inaugurate the event on Thursday. This year's edition will be the largest yet, with participation from over 90 countries and more than 2,000 exhibitors. New Zealand and Saudi Arabia are partner countries, while Japan, the UAE, Vietnam and Russia are the focus countries. The 7th Future Food Forum 2025 opened in Dubai, bringing together policymakers, industry leaders and academics to explore pathways for advancing food security, trade and innovation across the Global South. Discussions focused on building resilient food ecosystems through technology, sustainable practices and cross-border partnerships. Speaking at the event, public policy contributor and member of the Economic Advisory Council to Prime Minister, Professor Gaurav Vallabh Pant, said the UAE-India non-oil trade has the potential to serve as a benchmark for the Global South. He said India's vast and diversified talent pool, combined with the UAE's strategic hub status, is cutting-edge fields such as artificial intelligence and quantum technology hold the power to position the two nations as global leaders in shaping the future of innovation.
India-UAE can become an example of collaboration to the entire world, that what Global South together can do. UAE is having an advantage to enter into AI and quantum technology before many countries of the world. And India is having a very strong talent pool of this sector. So if that convergence will happen, the AI and quantum technology, both the countries can become hub and can show the way to the entire world.
A European Commission spokesperson has said that the EU will propose higher import tariffs on Russian oil in due course. Meanwhile, European Commission's President Ursula von der Leyen said on Tuesday that she wants Europe to stop buying oil from Russia by the end of the year, after US President Donald Trump urged NATO allies to cut energy ties with Moscow during a speech at the United Nations General Assembly.
In her press point with President Trump, President von der Leyen referenced additional steps we intend to take. She talked about sanctioning ports where LNG is coming from. This forms part of the 19th package. And she said we want to increase tariffs on oil imports from Russia. So in response to your question, the Commission will present further details on this in due course.
Smartphone exports are surging, not slowing. The India Cellular and Electronics Association has debunked claims of a decline, revealing a 39% jump in August alone. Exports to the US more than doubled. DD India's Prasar Bharati reports.
India's smartphone exports are rising, not falling. The India Cellular and Electronics Association has countered misleading claims about an export slowdown, setting the record straight with hard numbers. In August 2025, smartphone exports jumped 39% year-on-year from $1.09 billion to $1.53 billion. Smartphone exports to the US in the first 5 months of financial year 2026 reached $8.43 billion compared to $2.88 billion during the same period in financial year 2025, a 193% increase. In fact, the US figure for April-August 2025 has already reached nearly 80% of the entire fiscal year 2025. US exports total of $10.56 billion. Overall, in the first 5 months of fiscal year 2026, India exported smartphones worth 1 lakh crore rupees, about $11.7 billion, a record-breaking 55% rise. Experts caution against drawing month-to-month conclusions. August and September are traditionally lean months as factories retool for new launches and domestic demand peaks during the festive season. Exports usually bounce back sharply in October and November. Driven by the government's PLI scheme, smartphones have become India's best-performing export sector, climbing from 167th place a decade ago to the country's top export today. Far from a slowdown, the data shows India's smartphone exports are powering ahead, reinforcing the country's position as a global manufacturing hub. Tapas Bhattacharya's report for DD India.
In other news, US comedian Jimmy Kimmel returned to television on Tuesday, opening with an emotional tribute to Charlie Kirk's widow and saying that he did not want to make light of the activist's killing. Kimmel, suspended for nearly a week over his earlier remarks on the accused, also hit back at US President Trump, calling his reaction un-American and evidence that he cannot take a joke. Meanwhile, Trump blasted ABC for reinstating Kimmel, saying the network had earlier assured the White House that his show was cancelled. Chinese company Alibaba announced teaming up with the US tech giant Nvidia, marking a milestone collaboration to accelerate its development of humanoid robots. The news comes as Alibaba shares soared beyond 9% in Hong Kong after its chief executive Eddie Wu unveiled plans to further ramp up spending on artificial intelligence. Sports Minister Dr. Mansukh Mandavia on Wednesday felicitated India's medal-winning contingent from the 73rd Inline Speed Skating World Championships 2025 held in China. Marking a watershed moment for Indian skating, the national team delivered its best ever performance, clinching 5 medals, finishing 5th overall among more than 40 nations. This historic outing was marked by a series of remarkable firsts for India. It featured the country's first ever senior medal at a speed skating world championship, along with a groundbreaking achievement in the junior category with the first ever gold medal. Adding to the significance of the event, India also recorded its highest ever medal tally at the World Championships, making it a truly landmark moment in the nation's speed skating history. And that's all for this edition of DD India NewsHour. Let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. You can get the latest news and updates on the DD India mobile app. It's available on both Android and iOS platforms. You may wish to scan the QR code that is now on the screen to download it. And we'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Ramesh Ramachandran. From all of us here in New Delhi, thanks for watching DD India NewsHour.